I used to be the nice guy, and I would try and use my niceness to have control over women and how they feel about me, and again, do that make them approve of me with my niceness, and it's a form of control. It's a form of control, trying to be a particular way, because then you're hoping that the other person will like you, and you can get what you want, basically.
Hey guys, welcome to our conversation. We're doing something different. I have invited a fellow coach, which I don't have that many coaches, probably at the moment, to be honest with you, none actually I know who does things similar to mine. So I'm super excited to have this conversation. It's not just an interview, but more like a conversation and discussion. Two coaches do similar things, and I thought it would be so epic, because in our off time we have these conversations, and then sometimes we go like, oh, why did we not record it? So today my guest is Victor Granville, who is author, he's speaker, and the Real Love Strategist. Welcome, Victor.
Hey, Dilara, really good to see you and to be here. We're gonna have some fun. We're gonna really dive into some exciting things and topics and themes and just share. So I'm looking forward to.
Thank you for agreeing with this, because I know this is not something you have done before. It's not something I have done before either. So, but I thought it would be fun. Victor, first of all, can you explain what the Real Love Strategists mean?
Yeah, so the Real Love Strategist is a title that came up for myself, really because outside I see a lot of people trying to attract love or trying to experience love, but what happens is they get a shadow version of it. They don't get the real thing, they get a counterfeit experience of what real love can be. And so I want, in my work, I show people how to really access real love for themselves, and so that they can actually go on to share that love with another person and create loving relationships. So that's where it's coming from in that title.
I love it. It's very different. It's really beautiful. So what kind of coaching you do?
Yeah, so the coaching that I focus on, I'm a very holistic coach, and I mean, I look at working with people, the whole person in the whole context of their life, with a view to calling in loving, healthy relationships, or deepening the intimacy with existing relationships. So in another way, I help people who have childhood trauma or wounding that has impacted or is impacting their partnering decisions, the type of people that they attract and have relationships with. And I help them to heal that, learn how to deeply love themselves, so they can not have those patterns and those behaviors or those learned conditionings from the past impacting their ability to create loving relationships. And I also help people to deepen the intimacy in their current relationships, as I said. So that's really my work and my focus, and I really love and enjoy it. I really work with some amazing people, and I'm so blessed to be able to be in this sacred space helping people, like you.
I don't know what your thoughts about this, but I know for sure, since I start to focus on relationships, and of course, when we say relationships, guys, we don't just talk about relationships. That's including healing, that's including doing quite a lot deep work. So not just the relationships. I fell in love with people, and I am much less judgmental. I don't make assumptions as much as I used to. I'm still a very opinionated person, but definitely I don't have as strong opinions and thinking like I know it all the way that I used to. Because when you see people and when you create, when you become the part of that sacred space, you actually see and understand underneath all that, we all want to be loved, we all want to be heard, we all want to be seen, we all want to, one way or another, to be acknowledged. And It made me more compassionate and more loving and much kinder. What has been your experiences like?
Yeah, this work is, you know, in order to do this work, I have to be doing my own work, and constantly this work is constantly a daily evolution of courageously stepping in and clearing out things that um, might be blocking me from me being my best self, and for, you know, not allowing conditioning that I might have come from to govern and dominate my choices and the way in which I show up. And so, you know, so you want to be continuously, as well I am, continuously working with myself to be a loving human being for myself, and so that I can share that love with others. And so I'm constantly being transformed by my own work. And then as I'm working with my clients and supporting them in their processes, I'm being transformed in that dynamic as well, where even as I'm supporting them, I'm also being inspired and by the work that they're doing. And it's, you know, it's just amazing that it's a bi-directional, we're both getting something from it in a loving way that helps us evolve ourselves. So it's not just one way. And so
Yeah,
yeah,
I love it. I love it. What made you actually start to do what you do?
so I've always been involved in personal development, and I just love it. I've always had deep questions and about why am I here and what's going on, and wanting to know purpose. And you know, there's a number of reasons which converge as to why I'm doing the work I'm doing. But you know, I'm coming from, in the realm of relationships, I'm coming from a home where there was dysfunction, there was a lot of fear, like many people. I had to work through a lot of trauma in order for me, and do a lot of work in order for me to be ready for healthy, loving relationships. And this is one of the things that positions me in a very good place to be able to help others to work through their fears, work through their traumas, work through their wounding, so that they can open their heart and feel strong enough to love. And so that's part of the reason why I'm doing it. And also, I believe that I have a divine mandate on me to actually be doing this work. I believe that I'm being guided to do this work. You know, I've tried to do other work, and I've done the conflict management, I've done the corporate, but something pulls me back here. And this is where I feel most energized, most expressed, and most of service. And so this is why I'm doing the work I'm doing here. And yeah, and it's really because I just know how powerful now through my journey, how powerful self-love is, and why it is crucial to creating a life that is successful, a life of success in relationships, but in every area of your life. And so it's important to me to help people get this message and to work it into their lives so that they can access their best life. You, why do you do the work?
Me, I started as a life coach. It's just something I really wanted to do, but I never thought myself that I would focus on relationships. The reason is that I walked out of a marriage. So I never thought ever, like in my wildest dreams, that I would be the person who would talk about relationships. But then I guess sometimes, not for everyone, but that's what I can relate to, the fact that it's like you're saying this is like a soul's calling. I mean, your word was different, but I can understand that. I can so relate to that. It's like you can't fake that. It's just something pulls you in. I never started as a relationship coaching. That was the last thing, not even on my last thing in the agenda. The more that I start to dig deep, with all honesty, I'm like, I have to talk about this because I wish somebody was talking about it when I was going through that. That really helped me. And then that's just like you, I know that's my soul's purpose, because I'm like, I need it. And when I went to therapists and when I went to the counseling, I'm not bad mouthing therapists. I still like at times work with therapists, but I think with my luck, it's because I had to find out myself. I worked out with some coaches, this was years ago, by the way, like therapists, counselors, and everything else. They didn't have much compassion. They didn't have empathy. And I'm like, it would be so selfish. It's like my life or my marriage didn't end up for no reason, you know. And I'm not someone walks away. I'm not the type of person that gives up. And when I gave up something, walked up from something like so important, I realized there was a very deep wound there. And then it all makes sense. And then I'm like, I want to talk about it, even just with my experience. The things that I can see, because once when you experience, you can see it, right? I'm sure you feel the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more and more that we get to know ourselves, and especially the conditioned ego programmed aspect of us that contains our protections and our controlling strategies. And I said we've all learned controlling strategies. Is let's just take the judgment off it. We had to learn it to survive childhood. And if we're judging it, we're never going to learn about it and to know what we need to do differently. So we've all learned these patterns of control and protection. And so the more and more you get to explore and to heal your own wounded condition aspect, like I have done, like you have done, then you get to be able to see it in operation in others and around much more clearly. Yeah, it's very easy to spot it when it's in action.
Yeah, amazing.
And it can also be a very sneaky part of us as well. One moment we think we're showing up in our full adult selves, and really it's a masquerade of this young wounded part trying to be like it's an adult, trying to do adult relationships.
Before we started, when we had a quick chat, actually, and when we're talking about manipulation when it comes to the relationships and dating scene, and that's something that I refuse to be part of it, like, because when you do things like that, people don't get to meet real you. They only in a relationship with a persona and what you're showing, but then how ever going to experience intimacy when you don't let somebody see you.
Right. And there's a lot of mistrust in that as well, because if you believe you have to do all these things in order to get this love, then you're going to be afraid to stop it. And then you will never know really and truly if this person actually cares about you because you're trying to control so much, or if there is true love there, you know. And so it can undermine your own ability to trust what you have. And so, you know, you only really know what type of relationship you have with somebody is when you let go of control. And you let go of control, this illusion of control. And you just allow people to be who they are and allow them to choose, and activate their own free will to choose to be with you.
That's what something that I was sharing with you before I recorded it, and I always say that like as a person, as a woman, like Dilara, my personal relationships with men, I have experienced being chosen by men. And before anyone says that, oh, I can choose it, I don't mean that. Like, nothing. A man decides and choose to be with me, wanted to commit every morning. Like, that man decides to have a relationship with me. He wanted to have that commitment. And I saw, like, I never knew man could be like that. It's because he wanted to do that. And I just, like, the kind of men, like, I was with in those relationships that are, I mean, like, I have never seen that before. I'm like, this is amazing. And I wasn't doing anything. I was just being myself. Because they wanted to have that relationship. There's no manipulation, no nothing. I always say that when you ever taste a relationship like that, you never wanted anything else. And then you never wanted to manipulate. You're never trying to convince a man or like make them like, oh, let me just be attractive or do this and do that, because then there's a big difference. Then I had relationships before, of course, that I guess, like, not that I manipulated it, but I'm pretty sure that I did things that it probably did start the relationships that they weren't even supposed to be in that relationship. and how I felt constantly, I felt like chasing, and I felt not good enough for myself. And to be fair, forget about how I felt. It wasn't fair on the man because he wasn't in the relationship that he could show up completely himself. So for me, that's the biggest thing. And then that's what I always say, that just allow someone to see you, allow someone to choose you, allow someone to be committed to you 100%. What are your thoughts about that? You did mention a little bit, but because you're
yeah, yeah, like you said, you know, part of the healing journey that you've been on, you know, I've been on my similar healing journeys, and that, you know, I used to be the nice guy, and I would try and use my niceness to have control over women and how they feel about me, and again, do that, make them approve of me with my niceness, and it's a form of control. It's a form of control, trying to be a particular way, because then you're hoping that the other person will like you and you can get what you want, basically. So so it's about healing that. It's about recognizing that the only way to create a healthy, loving relationship is to be loving first, to be loving and to be healthy with yourself first, and then you can create healthy relationships. It's also about being happy first, and then you can create a happy relationship. Research shows that happy people, healthy people, create happy, healthy relationships. But people get it the other way around. They think that once I get the relationship, then I'll be happy. And then once they believe that, then then a lot of times they do all these types of things, these controlling strategies, these contorting themselves, twisting themselves to be things in order to get the relationship that they think they want. And yeah, and because of the premise is already off, you can't create from the premise of control. You know, a healthy relationship from the premise of controlling. You got to let it go.
I want to go back what you said, because I think it's really important. And this is one thing, for some reason, a lot of people don't understand. You said being nice and doing things in a certain way is actually a form of control. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I really do think that is so fundamental, but that's something that people miss out, because you must hear this a lot. And this is something I used to say in my life as well, in personal life. I'm such a nice person. I do everything. I don't understand. This is not fair. You know that, right? Just
Yeah.
the standard thing.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh my God, I've tried to control. I wasn't actually being nice. That's not even being nice. So can you talk to a little bit more, please?
Yeah. And so I was actually talking to somebody who was inquiring about my service the other day, and this was the type of theme that came up. So it was like you just said, I'm always nice. I'm nice to guys. I don't know what's going on. I'm nice to them, and they walk all over me. Yeah, that's what it is. Nice to them, and they walk all over me. Yeah. And so, you know, just tuning into that, you know, this whole thing about niceness, you know, if you're trying to use your niceness to get the approval, to get the validation, to feel safe with the other person, because you're not doing that for yourself, then not only are you rejecting yourself because you're not doing that for yourself and taking care of you, you're making someone else responsible now of making you feel okay. By being nice, you're hoping that they can take care of you and validate you. And what happens is, in being nice and you're doing everything for them, what you're doing is you're going to start putting yourself aside. You're going to start putting your feelings and needs aside. And the hope that if you take care of them and be nice to them, be loving to them, be caring with them, that they're going to turn around and then pick up your needs and start taking care of your needs. But it doesn't happen. What happens is you teach them how to treat you by the way you're treating yourself, and that is, you don't matter. If your needs are on the side and your needs don't matter because you're so focused on them, then you're training them that your needs don't matter either. So this whole walking all over is a mirror reflection of what you're doing to yourself. So until they wake up and start to say, wow, I need some boundaries here, on not giving myself away so much, and And when you have these boundaries in place, then you won't attract people that come to take. Because as long as you're giving, people you're gonna attract those that take. And then you're saying, well, I'm being so nice, and they keep taking, they don't give nothing back, they walk all over me. Well, it's because you're trying to control them with your niceness.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're coming from an empty place.
Yeah. It's this whole thing about like men, like I'm going to swear a little bit. It's okay. I hope I don't want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
But it's like men like bitches and women like bad boys. That's coming from there, though, isn't it? It's we actually don't like I don't think that I never met like with my work as well. Men don't necessarily like bitches or women like bad boys. But what is very attractive, and we don't need to separate that men and women. I know you don't like that either, and I don't like that either, because we just got different things. But then it's a lot of the things very similar when we dig deep. And the main thing is there, what some people could see it as a bitch or a bad boy. Well, bad boy is a different thing, I guess. But what is attractive about these people, that these people, first of all, create a life that they're really happy and fulfilled, and they have boundaries. So they're not gonna trying to change and do things in a different way in order to accommodate someone. So if something doesn't work for them, they have no problem in saying that, hey, no, it's not gonna work for me, or to sit down and have certain conversations. So it's not about being a bitch, but being like, or the bad boy. This the whole thing is that just be so full with yourself, but not in an ego place. It's the whole concept of you've got to fill your own cup first. Just be so overflow. And that is like when we think about the people we drawn to, like you say, they're happy, they're excited. We just want to be part of that.
Absolutely.
And that's very attractive. So for some people think that that's being selfish a bitch, and I'm like, no. If you have clear boundaries, if you know your values, if you know what's okay for you, what's not okay for you, and you have no problem with somebody, you want to walk away from that and they won't like that, and you're totally fine with that, not because thinking that person is bad or that, but thinking, hey, I respect that, that's totally fine, you can leave. But I'm not gonna be desperate. I don't want to say desperate, but I'm okay if you actually walk away from that. But I would, if you want to, I would love you to stay and I would want to work with you, but I won't force you. The door is always open if you want to leave. But this is not about sending someone, kicking someone out, but just being so strong about who you are. But in the same time, be okay with someone else shows up the same and respect their boundaries.
Right, exactly. It is about learning boundaries, and this is central to this whole self-love piece, where you are taking responsibility for filling yourself up with love, as you say. And so from that overflow, then you have love to share. But as you're filling yourself up with love, you are taking responsibility for defining yourself as worthy, as lovable, as kind, as good. And you are setting loving limits on behavior that doesn't feel good, that's unloving from other people, even unloving to yourself. You're setting boundaries on giving yourself up and trying to go along with things you don't want to go along in order just to keep love in. And so once you are coming and operating from this whole place, this connected place within, then you don't need to get something from somebody. You don't need to try and control them to be with you, stay with you. And you know that each person is free to decide what is in their highest good for themselves. And so it's not about trying to control them. If the relationship doesn't feel like a match, then if someone wants to walk away, then they're obviously free to do so.
They're free to do so. And it's not personal. It's not about you. It's just like they have every right to make that choice.
Yeah.
What is the healthy relationship? Sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned something before if we move on to something else. You mentioned something about why some people might be attracted to the bad guys, bad girl type thing. And
But
some people,
I didn't mean it like as attraction. What I meant, but I want to talk about that. So make
mm,
sure that you follow what you're
mm,
saying. I think maybe I didn't explain myself in that aspect. What I meant is when some people when they're so nice and then they turn around and say, "Oh, men love bitches." It's like, what is it wrong? What is wrong with
okay,
men?
right,
I've been
right,
so
right,
kind to this woman. I've been a decent
right,
man. Like he just goes to bad boys. And I was just in that context that I
yeah,
was trying to say, what they think it's a bitch or like it's a bad boy, it's actually is not. But
right,
I
right, right.
want you to continue because that's a very important thing that
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Completely. Yeah, these are
yeah,
not bad people. Yeah, they're people with
yeah,
boundaries. Yeah.
that,
Yeah, you couldn't get your way. You couldn't get them to love you in the ways you weren't, so now they're bad people.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Well, why do you say it's a bad boy? It's like we're selfish. It's like, no, it's
yeah,
okay. But I think please do finish what you want to say, because I think it's really important, because it is true in that context that you were referring to. There are some people are attracted to bad boys, and there are, or whatever.
yeah. So I guess the point that I was
Yeah,
going
let's
to, yeah, was the whole point of the unavailable partner, the unavailable person, and why people might say, why do I keep attracting the guys and women that are the same person, different face. It's such a struggle, it's an effort to get love from them, to get them to see me, to get them to acknowledge me, to get them to love me the way they want to be loved. And that seems to be their pattern. They say, I keep going after these unavailable partners and I don't know why. And so there's a number of reasons why this is happening. But one of them is that um, oftentimes this type of partner, and it goes back down to childhood, this type of person that you're trying to get love from in your adult relationship is becoming a surrogate person for the love that you didn't get from one or both of your parents. You're now trying to reenact that in your present day adult relationships, trying to get love from them, trying to get love from an unavailable person, because then you believe this condition, part of us believes, if I can just get this person who is unavailable to love me, then it means something. Then it means that I'm okay. So then this part of you has a project. It has a project to go after and trying to turn this unavailable person around to be available to you. And that is why you keep going around attracting this same type of partner, as long as your project is to get love from an unavailable person. You need to do the healing work so that you can release that part in you, so that you don't need to bring that in.
Yeah. And that's the part that, and I love the way you explain it. Couldn't agree with you more. It was so interesting for me, like when I experienced in my life too, that any man was healthy, committed, available, I wasn't interested.
Right, boring, hey, boring.
Because I still was like, give me daddy's love, and I haven't experienced that. Like, just if you love me, then I can love myself. I can feel like I'm good enough finally, because I need you, just like you say. And I mean, for me, that's what I can relate to as a person, and as well as the work as well. I chased so many times, and they were good men. They weren't even bad men. They were really good men. They were not good for me. And it's almost like you cannot mess with energy. They could see what I wanted from them, and I had an agenda. They could see it, that wounded side of me, and they could see that I was in healthy, in a self-loving whole place, and they didn't want to be part of it. But it's like, oh, but please, just just pick me, like commit to me, so then I know that I'm worthy of love. Then finally, like, I can heal. But that was no. Like, I had to dig deep, I had to heal, and I had to take full responsibility of it. And it was hard, it was really painful. But then that's just like you say, that was the only way. And as anyone I work with, it's the same thing. It's like, because as people, our first definition of relationship, that is our parents. It's not, I don't want to say like everyone who hasn't had their father or mother like will experience that. So I don't want to label things. but there's a generally that is the case.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We get our role modeling from our parents, from those were our first templates for love. So we observed them, and we absorbed a lot of their behavior, their wounded behavior. And oftentimes our parents didn't have loving role models as well, so they couldn't know how to love themselves, so they couldn't know how to love and see us in the way that we needed. And so they are, they're doing the best they can, but often what the best they can doesn't mean that it's loving. And so so we absorbed their unloving treatment, and we took it inside of us and absorbed it, and then we start treating ourselves in the same way that our parents would treat us. And so that's the way that's the parts of us we need to heal, that wounded behavior. So yeah, it's a very big deal. We got to go to the roots, and it is going back, and not just going back. I always work with people that, yes, there's a degree of going back and healing the past, but there's also healing the present and taking care of yourself in the present, because this is where we are now, and this is where we're most powerful, and this is what we can create from. But if we don't look at the past becomes our present. And if we don't develop our present, we can never truly heal from the past.
Because then if you don't actually do that, in my work at least, I feel like we only deal with the symptom. You haven't dealt with the cause.
Exactly. There's a lot of symptom addressing going on, but not the cause.
Yeah.
And this is why the things keep reoccurring and coming around again.
Yeah.
Right?
But when we actually go to the root of the things, I always, like in my work at least, that the way that it's been working so far, that when you go to the root of it, everything is almost like a collapse, because it's like it's not there anymore. Right. So it's the focus is, it's, for example, we're talking about maybe emotional unavailable people. That's just a symptom. That's not the cause. So when you go to the root of it, then those people will dissolve. I mean, you don't need to focus on that anymore, because you won't chase those people. Those people will not even come to your life. Maybe they will come a little bit just to test it. Yeah. Like, do you need a little bit more work? Like, are you still impacted? It's like you get a little bit tested, and then but you recognize it. You go like, oh, actually, I see that. This is actually my pattern is repeating. No, I don't want to be part of that. I'm going to make a different choice. And then, like, those people don't even come and find you anymore, because energetically you're not in that place.
Exactly.
They're not there.
Exactly. Your frequency. So the frequency of self-love is way higher than the frequency of self-rejection or self-abandonment. And you will resonate with people who are at your high frequency. So to the degree that you're loving yourself, valuing yourself, taking care of yourself, defining yourself as worthy, and making yourself happy, you will find people who are operating at that level, at that frequency. If you are rejecting yourself, abandoning yourself, trying to make others responsible for you, then that's a low vibe, it's a low frequency. And you will attract, like attracts like, like attracts like, law of attraction, you will attract somebody at that level of frequency. And so if you really want to know where you are, look at your relationships, and you can see how well you're taking care of yourself or not, because they are mirrors. And we can learn from them in terms of what's being reflected back to us. Either our boundaries and our love is being reflected back to us, or our lack of boundaries and unloving behavior towards ourselves is being reflected back. And if we choose to, we can then open up and do the work to raise our frequency, or we can choose not to.
Exactly, that's just a choice, but definitely it works. Like, there's no doubt about it. Can we talk about, because this is so important, I don't think we can talk about relationships without talking about boundaries. Let's talk about, first of all, a lot of people, this is what I experience, okay? There's a misunderstanding about boundaries and thinking they're walls, right? And the second thing is, sometimes when people don't heal the wound, they say it's a boundary, but that's nothing but a boundary. It's just a hurt, and then they try to protect themselves.
Right.
And then they think it's a boundary, but it's not.
Right.
So I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a great thing. There's a lot of confusion around boundaries, and here's how I work with it in my work. And boundaries is often being described or understood for many as, I'm going to tell you what you're going to do or not do that's acceptable to me. I'm going to tell you, you can't talk to me like that, or you can't do that to me, and that's my boundary. I'm placing a boundary on you. But the thing is, and you have no control over another person. As much as you want to think you can, you don't. And so that's not a boundary. What you're attempting to do is trying to control them. You can't talk to me like that. Well, yes, they can. That's their choice. So a boundary for me and in my work is to keep it in the realms of your own personal power and what you can do. So your boundary is about what you're going to do in the face of somebody else's actions. So if someone's talking to you in a disrespectful way, your boundary is, if you continue to talk like that, I'm going to remove myself from this conversation, right? And that is a boundary that you're placing that you can actually enforce because you are in charge of you. And so a lot of people are out here trying to control people in terms of getting angry at others and judging others and telling them what they can and can't do, and wonder why it has no real effect. In fact, it makes things worse. It's better that you disengage from an interaction anytime the behavior that you don't want to see happening arises. So that's one aspect, or the very deep aspect of boundaries for me, and people get that right.
Let's talk about this whole thing about I'm going to cut all these toxic people out of my life. Before I go into it, my choice, my personal choice, but anyone I work with, I'm all about taking full responsibility of everything. Absolutely. And our contribution of it. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the whole concept of I'm going to cut all the toxic people in my life, I feel like, again, that's just a symptom. That's not the cause. So if you are surrounded by so many toxic people in your life, you can cut them out, but a couple of years later, you're going to be surrounded by toxic people again. It's not just about you cut them out. You really dig deep and look at it. Maybe you have been a toxic person in that relationship. I know it can sound really cruel, guys, but that is, the work is that. The work is holding the mirror, looking at yourself to see your light and dark, accepting your shadow, that sometimes you are the toxic person. And why? What part of you wants to come up as a toxic and attract these people, and taking full responsibility of it? Then you can actually decide, this relationship, this kind of conversation, that is too toxic for me, and I do not want to be part of that anymore. So I hope I'm explaining myself in that aspect. So, because just to say that I'm going to cut all these toxic people out, like I just set my boundaries, just make sure that you're not the toxic person, because we're always the common dominator in any relationship or any place, especially when the patterns are involved. What are your thoughts about that? Maybe I'm a little bit too harsh, but I think the work is quite intense, and it's ultimately, it all goes back to the relationship we have with ourselves.
It does, and we come together, as I say, we come together, or we're drawn to or attracted to people at our similar levels or common levels of self-love, or self-rejection, or self-abandonment. So what that means is that we're going to attract people that's going to be reflecting where we're at. So as you're saying, like, if you are the common denominator and there's a lot of toxic people around you, then you need to look at the part in you that resonates with that, the toxic part in you that resonates, that is drawn to that toxic part in them. And so in this regard, then all our relationships become a learning arena for us to grow, if we are willing to step into it and see that our relationships can be a place to help us to grow and see what we need to heal. And so, as you said, if you just go around cutting people out of your life, without exploring the parts of you that are creating this, then you are going to move on and recreate it a few months down the line, a few years down the line, because we may leave people, but we cannot leave ourselves. Where, you know, wherever we go, there we are. And that means our patterns, our beliefs, our conditioning, our belief system. And so in no time, we're going to recreate it again. And so it serves us well to use all our relationships as a learning opportunity to see how we're not showing up or how we are showing up. And so, yeah. And sometimes, you know, in dealing with toxicity, yes, you can choose to not be around it. That's your choice as well. You know, you have the complete choice, because it's not great to be around. But, you know, if there's something you can learn from it, and adjust, and then do so.